Great. Kia ora tato. Welcome to another Q&A here at Digital Boost. I'm Georgia Hatzis, your host, and I feel really lucky today because Nicola, I tracked you down and then you tracked me down and we tried to figure out how to make this work. But yeah, Nicola Taylor and I got together and wanted to have this conversation with all of you from Taxi about putting your tax to work and getting your business moving forward. And Nick and I were talking about how there are all these tips and tricks around taxes that a lot of companies know about. And as SMEs, we don't, and we start to struggle. So I've got Daniel Faris here as well. Dan, hi, lovely to see you. Didn't mean to leave you out of that one. Dan's our guy. Nick's our girl. And we're here to talk about your taxes, how to get it to work for you, how to see your business move forward. And I'm going to let the two of you take it away. We're going to wait and do questions at the end. But if you do have questions as they're talking and speaking, pop them into the Q&A for me, and I'll field those at the end for you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Kia ora, Georgia. Ina mana, ina reo, ina karangataga. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Nicola Taylor aho, and it's such a pleasure to be with the Digital Boost group today. I'm here with Dan Faris. He's coming to you from sunny Tauranga. Is it sunny in Tauranga, Dan?
It's beautiful as you'd expect from the Bay of
Okay.
Plenty. A little bit of high cloud there, guys. I can report from the field, but it's very nice.
So wherever you are in Aotearoa, thank you for turning up. Thank you for being a business owner. Business is how we change the world. And we're just really delighted to be able to talk to you today about Taxi and just add another tool to your toolkit for funding and cash flow. Really important that you have absolutely every option available to you because as business owners, we need that. So thank you for joining. Hey, just as we get going, so we can get to know you a little bit, would you be so kind to pop into the chat what your business is, how long you've been in business, and maybe what your number one pain point is. So just take a moment to do that, and that would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, and those of you on the Zoom, the chat it's not functioning, so it's in the Q&A. In the Q&A function, pop in those things, and no one else can see it but by us, so it's anonymous.
Right, you can write all sorts of things.
Yeah, you can write all sorts of things.
It'll just give us especially for follow-up, give us a great idea about how we can connect well. So look, a little bit about me. So I am married to Josh Taylor, and we have three beautiful children. Our son is 17, our middle child's 15, and our little one is 12. I went to Avondale College, that's in the west of Auckland. So if there are any Westies on the call, I'm with you. Yeah, I love my West Auckland roots. But I might just take, before we get into the nuts and bolts of Taxi, let me just take 2 minutes and tell you our business journey. So in 2012, this is 165 Grey Street, Onehunga. So in 2012, my husband and co-founder Josh was made redundant in a spectacular fashion, had a huge impact on him. That gave us an opportunity to think about how we wanted to create our lives, and particularly what the value was that we wanted to create. We both had legal backgrounds, we both had tax backgrounds, and we felt like the door had opened to us to set up our first business, which was Tax Traders. So with 2 little babies and another one about to be born, we sold this house. We moved into our friend's house down the road, and we lived there for the first 18 months. We actually moved house when our littlest one was 6 days old. Do not recommend. But for 18 months, we didn't make any income. We were just living off our savings. We got down to the last $3,000 to our name. We started selling things so that we could, continue to fund the business. You can see there's a motorbike and a cover in that photo there. That was like the first thing to go after we sold the house. And we continued to do this while we waited for the business to work. 18 months is, for those of you who are in the early stages, 18 months is a long time to go without income. I feel you. But I would say keep going. After 18 months, we were able to get our first transaction underway, and that was worth $90,000. And we were the business started. And from there, the business has grown really, really well. We, in our last year, did over 100,000 transactions. We've grown from having no funds under deposit to now managing over $2.7 billion. We've obviously gone from just the two of us on the team to a team of 48. And in a really proud moment, we became a B Corp in 2021. So I'm encouraging you, keep going on your business. I'm also encouraging you, remember why you're in business. For me, for us, we had two core drivers. One was that the benefits of the tax system should be available to every New Zealand business, not just the big corporates. You shouldn't need a tax team and lawyers to be able to access what is in our legislation. So that was the first core belief. And the second core belief is that business can be a force for good, workplaces can be amazing, business is great at solving complex problems. I think better than government, better than not-for-profit. So, and you're not going to change my mind on that. So that's a little bit about my journey. But let's talk about taxi. So, why, after having a successful business, why would we launch a new business? Why would we launch a new business? And again, that comes down to those driving beliefs that the benefits of the tax system should be available to everyone. And what taxi does is it creates a new source of working capital for businesses using the provisional tax framework. It is a great tool to have in your funding and cash flow toolbox. If you're paying provisional tax now, you should have a taxi account. And if you're not paying provisional tax yet, if you're not in profit yet, just keep this tucked away so that when you come into a profit paying position, you can sign up to taxi. So what problem does taxi solve? So you will know this. I don't have to explain this to you. I sometimes have to explain it to accountants, but I won't have to explain it to business owners. Access to working capital is the number one identified need of business in Aotearoa. It is also the leading cause of business owners suffering from anxiety as well. So this is a problem. We need working capital. We need it to be flexible, and we need it to be affordable. At the same time, just pop back up, Dan. At the same, please. At the same. Oh yeah, there we go. At the same time, when you make your provisional tax payments as a business, they sit at inland revenue and they are idle for up to 18 months. They're not earning you interest. You can't access that money. And that is a lot of money. From SMEs alone, there is $18.4 billion of provisional tax sitting idle at inland revenue. So what taxi does is it allows businesses to use those provisional tax payments as security to access funds. It's available to all businesses that have been paying provisional tax, and it's radically affordable. And it's really good for us to know that big corporates have been doing this for over 10 years. In fact, it was an experience in the 2021 lockdown. I don't want to take you all to a very dark place, but it was an experience in the 2021 lockdown where we were approached with our first business tax traders by a very big NZX listed retailer about to go through the 2021 lockdown. They were unsure whether they would be able to trade through. Their bank would not increase their facilities at all. But because they had made a $30 million provisional tax payment into what's known as a tax pool, two things happened. First of all, their tax remained paid and they were not incurring any late payment penalties or use of money interest. But secondly, we were able to take that $30 million provisional tax payment, use it as security, access funding, and effectively give them a $30 million cash injection, which was the reason they were able to trade through that lockdown. So big businesses we've been doing this with big businesses for years. But as I was sitting there in the lockdown, great success story for that big company, what I was really overwhelmed with was, this is cool. This is great, but do you know who really needs access to this kind of working capital? Is every small and medium enterprise that has been paying their tax on time, every time, for years and years, and yet does not have access to this amazing source of working capital. And why? Just because they're a bit smaller. Like when we did this working capital facility for that big NZX listed company, it took us 2 days, it took them 2 days, and it cost them $20,000 in legal fees because of how complex it is. And like that's not okay. It's not okay with me. It's not okay with Dan, and that's why we spent 2 years taking that very complex system of provisional tax-backed working capital and turning it into a beautiful product that every business can use.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about that. What is next? So Taxi 101. Do you want to go through this, Dan?
Yeah,
Give
absolutely.
people a break from my voice for a little bit.
Well, I mean, I could listen to you all day, Nicola, but I'm very happy to crow about what taxi actually means for people. So if we're thinking about all of what that means and why we were so excited to bring it to every business in New Zealand, well, firstly, it's because the rates that taxi funds are available at are about half those of a big bank overdraft. I mean, that anchors everything. There are other things that we will be looking forward to telling you about, but it's worth starting with that. It's a good deal, and it starts right there. All of you will have had the experience of going through credit checks and financial disclosures, trying to tell a lender that you are a good risk to be taking. Well, that's not required here. If the tax is paid in through taxi, that's all that we need to know, subject to things like a little AML check, nothing particularly complicated. And look, the pain of a personal guarantee and the headspace that those occupy isn't a factor for taxi. We don't need it. We won't ask you for it. As long as you paid your tax through us, you are good to go. The back end that supports taxi, so remember this is all built on the New Zealand provisional tax framework, is approved by IRD and has been trading with IRD on tax pooling for 12 plus years now. The funds themselves are held by public trust at an account at IRD, so it's not floating in some random account somewhere. It is fully secure and again in line with the compliance required by IR. And not only that, but your account is connected to your MyIR as well. So you have full visibility on what's going on. And I'm happy to say that we're seeing some really great feedback from our existing customers that they enjoy seeing their tax position so much better through Taxi than through MyIR, that they're setting up accounts, even if they don't have much tax running through it, just so that they have an easier experience. So we like to think we do a pretty good job of displaying a really nice to use interface as well. But the point here is that this product is the real deal. If it looks like it's too good to be true, it isn't. This is just an advantage that the New Zealand tax system has, and it's the reason why we've worked so hard to bring it through and offer it to businesses like yours. So how might you go about getting access? Well, it's pretty straightforward. At gotaxi.co.nz, you can go and sign up. Part of that sign up process is linking your tax information. Once that's done, you are ready to pay your tax through Taxi. So when you generally pay your provisional tax, it goes straight to your standard IR account. You'll have a bank account number for that. Same deal for us. The bank account number is slightly different. And that means that that money is going into the pool as tax and can be used as the security for those funds. Once that's done, you're away. You can click the Access Funds button and those funds will be in your account within 3 working days. So very available, very accessible. And like I said before, can't beat that rate. And just to really double down on it, here's today's rate. So 7.09% per annum. There's a 0.15% administration fee that equates to a minimum of sort of $90 per quarter, but sign up is free. So you're under no obligations here. You can go and sign up, get all set up, have a look and a tour around the product, get a sense for how it all works. But to have funds on standby at that rate is something that we're seeing lots of enthusiasm from businesses on, and some very interesting use cases as well that we'll come and cover with you shortly. So let's just put that into comparison with how that rate stacks up with the big banks. So 7.09% from us. These are the rates from yesterday, by the way. So Westpac sitting there, their maximum overdraft rate, which we think is a good comparison for the way that Taxi works, is 18.95%, going up even a notch further for ANZ. I mean, those are some pretty excruciatingly high rates to be paying, let alone the rigmarole that you have to go through in order to get access to funds through those banks in the first place. So we're very, very pleased to be putting Taxi funds out in the market. We think it's really good money to be equipping New Zealand businesses with, particularly at this point in time. You know, often people will have facilities on standby, perhaps with these larger, Australian-owned banks that are covering, the day-to-day of business. But we're in pretty exceptional times right now, and we think it's a really great moment for a new, highly accessible facility to be available to Kiwi businesses. It's the kind of time where just a little bit more could be all the difference. And so any business that we can help trade through, survive to 25, we're here for it. And it's also worth noting that the repayments on this are very flexible. This isn't a fixed loan. They come with a minimum 9-month, or they come with a 9-month term, but that's the maximum term. So if you only need the money for a week, only keep it for a week. You won't pay for anything that you don't need. There's no penalty for repaying early. You can skip repayments within that 9-month term, and you won't be penalized for that either. So it is a 9-month block of very flexible funds that can be extended as long as you keep paying your tax payments through the taxi account. Nicola, this is a quote from the Post that we rather liked. They did a great article on us earlier in the year. Do you want to talk to this one?
Yes, and look, I know this is very new, and it is new. Up until now, most businesses have not been able to use their provisional tax payments as security to access working capital. So we understand that it's new, but and there has been wonderful media coverage, but I particularly liked the way that Hannah McQueen, who's the founder of Enable Me business coaching for businesses and individuals, how she described it. So she describes it like this: in its simplest form, taxi is access to guaranteed lending at a cheaper rate than the bank without any hoops to jump through. Taxi offers a business overdraft with a twist. Business owners can access an amount equal to 90% of their provisional tax payments. And I think it's important that Dan, I just want to pick up on what Dan said a few moments ago, that this is about timing. What we understand is that the baseload of funding for most businesses is not a problem. You've worked out how to create a business that is profitable. But actually, it's those unexpected moments, whether that's an unexpected opportunity or whether that's an unexpected downturn in the economy, or whether a piece of machinery breaks, that is actually where taxi really comes in to add value. The difference between getting a good business outcome versus a bad one usually comes down to the timing of when the opportunity arose and whether you're in a cashed up position to take advantage of it. I'm going to talk through a couple of user stories, and I hope this will really help you to understand how are our taxi clients actually using taxi. So we'll start off with so these are real life examples. This is a cafe owner who needed to upgrade her signage and menus. This was going to cost $15,000. But if she did it right then, there was a special deal and she would be able to do that for only $10,000. She wanted to do that. At the same time, she had a $10,000 provisional tax payment due. She also wants to pay that. She can't do both. Well, by paying her tax through taxi, so her $10,000 provisional tax payment is still held at IRD, but it's held in the taxi trust account, then she can access, remember, 90% of her provisional tax payments, so she can access $9,000. It'll cost her $100 to access that. She can pay for her signage, and she saved herself $5,000 because, again, timing. She had the cash through taxi to be able to make the most of that moment. Another great user story that we have is a really cool company. They're a deli business. We have so many clients in the food and beverage business, and the upside of that is we feel to support them, we need to try their products. So we are always having wine. We've got a gin company. We're always having new wine, gin, and food in the taxi office because we're just being we're just being supportive. So that's pretty neat. But great sandwiches. They run a successful deli business. They've had the opportunity to just distribute into a new supermarket chain rather than just in their the deli and through Uber Eats. The overdraft is modest. They're a newish business. It's already at capacity, and they just didn't want to go to their bank. And I can understand that. Banks aren't entrepreneurial. They don't understand your vision or where you want to go or why expansion is a good idea. I mean, I think most banks don't want us to expand at all. They want us to stay kind of small and safe. So didn't want to go talk to their bank. So what they did instead was they paid their tax through Taxi. They were able to access $180,000 within 2 days, no bother, no applications, none of that fuss. It cost them $1,063 a month plus their admin fee. They saved time on their application. They didn't have to get their accountant to do forecasts or anything like that, and they got going within 3 days. So we're super excited about watching how that goes.
And I'll add on that one just
go.
briefly, Nicola. This is one that the team is immensely proud of, because not only is it a really great example of capital working, like it's the truest form of working capital right here, but this was a massive opportunity for this client that came up on relatively short notice, and they could do it because they had access to taxi funds. And so we've got this sort of secondary pride in this belly business, because we know that it was what we did that really helped them to pounce on that opportunity when it came up. And for any of you who are trading in FMCG type goods and working with the supermarkets, you know that filling that first order, firstly getting the first order and then filling it, can be one of the most stressful moments and a pivotal point for the business. And so seeing them go through that victoriously like they did was a great moment for us as a team.
Yeah, I was super proud. So our next example comes from, I think, investment property. I know there's someone on the line in construction, and we have some really good examples in the construction industry. But this one was actually someone self-employed, ready to buy an investment property. The deposit was due to be paid. This person was due that same, amount from customers. The money they were due was unexpectedly delayed. I'm sure we can relate to that. So they weren't in that cashed up position to pay the deposit, and they actually missed the opportunity. They had just paid $75,000 in provisional tax. So if they had paid that provisional tax through Taxi, they could have accessed $67,500 for 2 months at about $800 and secured that property. Another example of timing. Let's do our next one, Dan. This is, oh yes, I love this company. They're down the line a little bit. They have a seasonal business, so there's like gardening and lawn mowing and all sorts of
hedges, you name it.
What's that?
Hedges as well.
Hedges, yeah.
Right.
But
they have
really,
a growing season, let's say.
Yeah. But really, a seasonal business. Profitable, successful, but highly seasonable. This guy was using his big bank overdraft to just trade through the seasonal low period. He was actually being charged 22.5% on that. So what he has done instead is pay his tax through Taxi. He can access $90,000 at $531 a month plus admin fee, which you can see is a huge saving to him. He's saving $1,100 a month. Man, that is worth it. Like that means something.
ROI on that is pretty strong.
Yeah. Do we have other user stories, or is that us, Dan?
One thing worth mentioning about this one is that they haven't lost access to their overdraft either. So they've made this shift to utilizing taxi funds for that seasonal low period. They also need their overdraft for expansion and all sorts of other things. That overdraft hasn't gone anywhere, hasn't been affected by their new taxi facility that's available. They just get to use the appropriate funds for the appropriate thing, and it's given them more headroom. So there's a really lovely story that sort of hides in here a little bit, which is that they are now just a little bit more liquid, a little bit more stable, a little bit more willing to take risks. And there's one more user story that we'll roll through. I can take this one if you like.
Yeah, you go for it, Dan.
So we've got here a seasonal business with very focused around that Christmas period. Imagine retail. They bring stock in from overseas. That stock has like a lead time of 4 to 5 months. Extra tricky because there is a deposit required to secure the order with full and final payment required on delivery. And delivery is in October, and all of that is well ahead of where their sales are going to land. So they've got tax due during that period where deposits and full and final payment on their order also needs to be paid. In this particular case, this company had $75,000 and $100,000 due on 7th of May and 28th of August, respectively. What they have done is by paying their tax through Taxi, they used the limit from that first installment, 67,500, to cover their deposits, and then the limit from their second installment, $90,000, to pay the balance in October. So effectively, the cash position of the business is relatively unchanged because those were tax payments that needed to go anyway. And rather than committing to, a longer fixed term arrangement or anything like that, they can flexibly pay back that amount as soon as they're past their Christmas high period. So once they're after Christmas, they've got cash in the bank, they'll pay down those taxi amounts and save on interest. And away they go, they're into their next year, and their tax installments now are helping cash flow the growth of that business.
Oh, when I jump in here, and I've just had a quick look at the Q&A, and I can see some really, really relevant businesses. The comments saying you've been in business for 25 years and this is your hardest year. We are seeing that. Sorry, Dan, just pop back up. So thanks. Who is using Taxi? So we've the seasonal businesses that experience lumpy cash flow, and our lawn mowing kind of business was a great example of that. Businesses experiencing growth, our deli business is a great example of that. A lot of retail, hospitality, and any industries that require monthly purchasing before goods are sold. Also businesses looking for a greater sense of calm, that peace of mind, which means so much. We're seeing a lot of consultants using Taxi on waiting on payment of outstanding invoices, trades, construction manufacturers, and import exporters. And lastly, any business needing to survive to 25, and that comment saying you've been in business for 25 years and this is your hardest year. Yeah, we hear that. We are seeing it around here. You've got a profitable business. You've got a successful business. This is difficult times. And actually, Taxi's a really great tool to have in your toolkit to get to 25. So what industries? We've touched on this a little bit, but we're seeing a lot of users come from building, construction, and manufacturing. Again, that mistiming of payments and invoices, super interesting. Business, HR, and consulting services. We're seeing this. Marketing, communication, design, food and beverage, which we love. Trades and home services, and professional services.
Yes.
And I can see that there's a real cross-section of you on the line here. So why are they using Taxi? Straight up, halve your overdraft costs.
Yep.
Just make the switch.
A simple equation.
Simple equation. Accessing new funds for growth. What they love is that the acceptance is guaranteed if you are paying provisional tax. No hoops to jump through. Why are they using Taxi? They love that there's no time-consuming application to banks, no disclosures, forecasts, or credit checks. Nobody wants you to put your third child on the line or go through whether you have 2 coffees a week or 3. Do have to do AML. They're using it to manage seasonal trading and timing of payments. They're using it for peace of mind, and they're using it because, as Dan so rightly pointed out, it can sit alongside their banking facilities.
And I'll add really briefly,
Yeah,
Nicola, that we're still learning about new ways that people are using Taxi funds. It's obviously a new thing in market, and you can't beat the creativity of businesses that are really working to optimize how their business runs and how their finances work. A couple of interesting ones that I've enjoyed learning about recently. One of them is a consulting firm that is effectively being able to offer more generous payment terms because they know that they've got their Taxi facilities standing in the background. It's helping them win a little bit of business. Everyone wants a bit of generosity at the moment, and that's one of the ways that they are helping pass that along. We're also seeing businesses who might have a little uncertainty over their tax amounts. It's obviously a relatively uncertain year. They're paying the amount in and then pulling a reasonable amount out of it straight away. Because effectively by having those funds sitting in the pool, they've got some flexibility about the actual tax amounts as well. So when they file, that's all going to even out at the end. So some real creativity being unlocked by the way that this facility works.
So I think we've got one slide here. Then we're going to get into some of the common questions we get asked, and then it's over to you. So take us through the dashboard, Dan.
Very good. And we won't dwell on this too much, but effectively Taxi is accessed online. You've got an app. So website, gotaxi.co.nz. Like I said, there's a relatively simple sign-up process you go through. Once you're in, you have visibility on the tax amounts that you have paid. the limit that you have available, and a very straightforward process to pull those funds down. So everything you need is available there on your dashboard. And like I mentioned before, one of our little pleasures on the way through is that we've seen that people are finding this honestly a little bit easier to understand their provisional tax position through our taxi interface than sometimes through the IRD. Repayment schedules are there. Repayments, of course, are flexible, but our recommended repayments are loaded in there for you to follow along with. And of course, balances on any withdrawals. You can make multiple at the same time if you want to. So if you've got 2 or 3 drawdowns that you've done, you're going to see the statuses on all of those there. So a lovely online experience with all the information you need ready to go. Couple of common questions that I think are worth covering off. Perhaps we'll go turnabout on these, Nicola. Excellent. So one of the key questions is, well, what happens if I've pulled money out of taxi and I can't repay it at the end of that 9-month standard term that we offer within the taxi system? Well, it's quite simple. As long as you're continuing to pay your provisional tax through taxi, we can extend that term. So as long as that baseline of tax payment is still happening, there will still be tax acting as security, and we can just roll that term along for you. There's no fees attached to establishment costs or anything like that. It's as simple as just having a quick chat to us and we can make sure that happens. If you're unable to hit those tax payments as well, we're going to be working closely with you on the way into that to help find options for you. It helps that we're really good friends with a company called Tax Traders, which is really good at solving tax problems. So there are often options that we can provide there. And look, if it's really tough out there and there aren't any options that work, then we will make sure you've got the right connections with IRD, because obviously it is those tax amounts that you paid through acting as security. They will stay with taxi to cover those taxi funds and won't head their way over to IRD. So that's really the scheme we've got. So you've got tax acting as security, and that's the security that's used if the repayments can't be made. We haven't had anyone land into that situation.
No,
we've managed to find a way forward. And again, the ability just to roll that term, if you're continuing to make your tax payments, has really been quite effective for people so far.
Yeah. So again, and somebody put that on the chat as a question. So we understand that not every 9-month period goes as planned. We've built flexibility into the product so that if you need extra time, you can have that without penalty, without extra fees, so long as you keep paying your provisional tax. Okay. How much can I access under my taxi facility? You can access an amount which is up to 90% of the provisional tax payments that you have made in the last 12 months. So you can imagine that you make your first payment. So actually next one's on 28th of August for most Kiwi businesses. You make that payment, then you have another one in January. So your amount that's available will actually start to build up over a 12-month period. So you'll see your taxi limit increase as your first 3 provisional tax payments are added. Let's keep going.
And it'll always generally stop at around those 3 payments. As you add the subsequent payment, the earlier one will roll off. So it's a rolling 12-month period of taxes acting as security. So how do you pay your tax through taxi? Well, I mentioned it before, but effectively it's a bank account number, much the same that you would use for paying IRD. Just use our one instead of IRD's one. Reminder, it is a public trust account sitting at IRD that it's all going to, but it does need to go onto that one so that we can utilize it as security. Now, to get access to that number, you'll have set up your account and you'll click the Add Funds button on your dashboard. That's going to display the relevant payment information. It is as simple as the right bank account number and in the details of that payment, your IRD number. That's all that we need to know.
Oh, and do you have to provide a guarantee or financial information? No. We only take security over your provisional tax payments, and this is high quality security. You are a profitable, compliant member of their business ecosystem, and it represents lower risk than any other kind of business lending. So we don't need a guarantee. We don't need further security. We don't need further additional information. The only disclosure we require from you is an AML check, which is done through real AML, so online, relatively painless.
That's right. And I'll add that that same low risk profile is one of the big contributors to why we can offer such a sharp rate. And of course, we want to be supporting New Zealand businesses and New Zealand more than anything else. We think that's the powerhouse of change and prosperity and human flourishing in New Zealand happens with businesses like yours. And so that's why we are taking really a very lean approach to putting these funds out in the market. We're making the most of the low cost that we carry to get this through, and we're passing that right on in our rate.
Absolutely. So August 28th is coming. If you're in a provisional tax paying position right now, you'll be making a provisional tax payment on this date. I am highly recommending to you that you set up an account by visiting gotaxi.co.nz, that you pay your August 28th tax installment through Taxi, that you, once your tax is paid, you complete your AML check, and then you can sit tight knowing you've got peace of mind of up to 90% of that tax you've paid, or you can access those funds and you would do that online, and those funds would be in your bank account within 3 business days.
That's right.
Highly recommend you get out in front, set this up in the next couple of days, and let's get your tax working for you.
Yeah.
And let's get those benefits of the tax system available to every New Zealand business, not just the big corporates. That's why we're here. So
and I'd also encourage you that, because there's no cost attached to setting up an account, even if you're not in that tax-paying position right now and you're curious, you're very welcome to go and set up an account. You can go and have a tour of what's going on in there, get some familiarity with how it works. And the day that that tax does come due, well, you'll be able to unlock those funds using that account that you've already set up. It's a great way. We think it's a great way for people to get more understanding and a bit of insight into how it all works. In fact, this is an aside. We had a firm that signed up on the 7th of May, which was the last tax payment for the last tax year. They didn't make any payment then, but they made the 28th of August payment early this year because they have gone from not owing any tax to, for the first time, owing tax. So for any of you guys that are in that similar position, you're more than welcome to sign up early if you like.
Cool. So one of the questions that has come through, is there a fee for setting it up, even if I don't need it straight away? There is no fee for setting up an account. Okay.
Correct.
So that's that. We've also got a couple of questions from people who aren't paying provisional tax yet. So that's correct. Taxi isn't for you yet, but when you start paying your provisional tax, you want to have a taxi account and you want to have all options available. Are there any other questions we've missed there, Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, so many. First of all, so thorough, so brilliant. I absolutely love this tool. I love this tool for businesses. And, you know, when we first talked about it and discovered it, my heart just filled up. And the whole idea that the passion of this project behind it is to do business for good. You know, and we had a Q&A on Tuesday. We were measuring social impact, and we were talking about social impact versus financial impact. And here we've got both, right? We're just seeing it come together in this beautiful synergy. And it just, you know, blows me away. I think anyone who can use Taxi should. I mean, I'm not allowed to plug any businesses, obviously, as Digital Boost, but I think this is such a brilliant idea and such a great way for us to make our own money work for us. And brilliant. Yes, we do have a few questions that I want to get through. If you file a tax return and then receive a tax refund for the year due to overpaid provisional tax payments, does this refund automatically go to Taxi or to the bank account recorded in my IR?
That's a great question. So in that scenario, if you're leading into filing and the tax installments you've paid prior to filing have gone into Taxi, then you can just pull that out. You can pull that out without any costs, because we will see that your tax owing has decreased for that year. And obviously we are only holding security up to your tax obligation. So effectively what some people are doing, and this is a great use case for Taxi, if they think that they're heading into a scenario where they're going to be due a refund, they might pull those funds out early. So effectively imagine a scenario, let's say $100,000 of tax, they've pulled out 50 and they end up with a $30,000 refund due from IR after they have filed. Well, they're only going to need to pay back $20,000 to us at the moment that gets updated, simply because you don't need to add back in funds that you don't need anymore. So people are using Taxi as a way of effectively getting early refunds with, I suppose, the flexibility for that to change as they head into it. So yes, it's very accessible. If anything, it's actually more accessible through Taxi because you can draw it out early if you decide you want to.
Yeah, that's great. And I think to that, just to add on to that question, I see here that someone is not eligible to pay provisional tax, but they still want to start paying provisional tax, even though their business is running at a loss. So would they be, then they could do that through Taxi?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in that scenario, the IRD is not going to have a view on how much tax you should be paying. You'll need to manually enter that when you set up your taxi account. There's a very simple field you see on your dashboard to enter an amount. Just pay that amount into taxi. Everything else will act exactly as you've seen it just on the presentation now. So in fact, we do have a couple of businesses that have been doing that, some even paying their 28th of August early for that same reason. They're in their first year of trading, or they think they're heading towards a profit, but IRD isn't recognizing it yet. This is hedging effectively for them the obligation that they might find they come up with later in the year. And again, there's lots of flexibility baked into taxi. So as that variation rinses out, you might pay a little bit of interest and that facility fee, but the net of that is that you've got certainty around what's going on.
Right.
I've just popped an answer in the chat to another question about sorry, is this for limited liability companies, or is it just personal taxpayers? It absolutely is for limited liability companies, sole traders, limited liability companies, anyone who is paying provisional tax. I feel like my kind of slack Kiwi accent got in the way there, and you might have thought I said personal tax, but we're talking provisional tax. Okay, so not personal tax. This is provisional tax paid by sole traders and limited liability companies.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
How dare you bring a Kiwi accent into
I was
the audacity.
too fast. No, it was my Kiwi accent. Too fast, too excited.
I will say that so we have sole traders and contractors who use taxi. Some of them were using things like Henry to manage their tax, but they wanted to have access to taxi funds more than they wanted Henry. So once they moved away from Henry, filed a tax return again, paid tax in those 3 main installments, August, January, and May. Then they were able to utilize taxi as soon as they had put some funds through. So it doesn't have to be specifically an LLC. It's just any provisional tax paying entity can access this.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then another question here. So if you pay your provisional tax through taxi and you don't draw any funds, you only pay the 0.15% admin fee. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Correct. So that effectively is covering the cost of us having the funds on standby for someone to draw it down. You can equate it probably most equivalent to what you'd consider a line fee on an overdraft from a big bank. So again, factored against how much funds are available. Now, if you're in the lucky position where you might be paying an awful lot of tax and you actually don't want a facility that's 90% of all that tax, we can reduce that limit for you. So you might prefer to be at 50% of the amount of tax that you've put into the pool. That's no problem at all. It will save you a bit of money on that facility fee because we're not having to hold as much funds on sort of standby to cover a withdrawal if you want to make one. But yes, effectively, the only standby cost is that administration fee, and it only kicks in once you have tax paid through taxi. So there is zero cost and zero obligation prior to paying tax through taxi. You're welcome, if you want to set up an account and pay IRD directly. It does mean you miss out on all the wonderful benefits, but it will never cost you anything if you don't use us.
I just think that's brilliant. I love the flexibility of it as well. Like any questions anyone has, you're like, yep, we can do that, or we can do this. So we can move it around, and you're just willing to work.
Keep them coming.
Also because it's our money, right? And you're like, yes, it's your money. How do we get you to use your money? Let me help you with that because we understand it.
Yeah, and I think because we are business owners ourselves and we've been on that journey, I have deep empathy for business owners. When we say no complicated forms, you don't have to go to the bank, it's because I've had terrible experiences at going to the bank. Terrible experiences that I won't go into, but I don't want other business owners to experience that. So yeah, it's from a place of deep empathy, and also what we're learning from our clients. We launched in March. So we had a beta program before that where we learned a lot. We launched in March to the public, and we're learning, we are learning all the time about what is most valuable.
And to pull the curtain back a little bit and speak to some of the personal motivations that sit behind this, well, we're really serious when we say that we think Kiwi businesses and business itself is the best place for growth and flourishing to happen. It's just It's where people spend most of their time. It's highly influential on the lives and the well-being of people around the nation. And we really feel that putting your money back in your hands, if you need it, effectively, it's the best kind of money that you can get your hands on. It's not funded from an offshore entity. It's not expensive. And doing that in a really, really dignified way, one that really respects the people who are out here working hard and sweating it to get through and to make a difference, support their people. We know the heart that goes into having a payroll, for example, and caring really deeply for the people on that payroll. So if there's anything we can do to support that for New Zealand, then we're going to do it. And I've got to say, again, speaking personally as Dan Faris, immensely proud to be working on this because we're seeing already the good that it's doing, and we can't wait for it to do more good.
Beautifully said, Dan. Thank
you. So good. So good. But also, like, how beautiful to hear the words tax and like this altruistic view together, right? Just a passion for caring for people. I can't say enough how brilliant this is. I'm just going to, there's a comment here I want to read out loud for those who can't see it. There doesn't appear to be any downside to your service. I will definitely be recommending to my clients to access your website and use your services. I am an SME tax agent and love what you are providing. Thank you. Thanks, Debbie.
Oh, thank you.
We're thrilled by that. And I'll just mention that we have a partner program for firms, tax agents and firms that are keen to utilize Taxi or recommend it to your clients. There are a couple of benefits associated with that. So please reach out after this and we'll connect you in and get you the details of that. Would love to give you more technical information around this if you'd like it as well, so we can arrange something around that.
Yeah, and can I just jump in? Dan, do you want to get the next slide up so they've got our contact details?
Sure. Yeah.
But also, there's a lovely comment here saying I'm going to talk to my accountant. Accountants, this is very new. Insist that if they don't know about Taxi yet, you insist that they find out about it and and talk to you through it. Do not let your accountant put you in the SME category, which is, we just want to deal with you quite quickly and we don't want to, show you all the options. Don't let your accountant do that. You demand that your accountant gives you the very best service and gives you all of the tools in the toolbox, and Taxi is now one of those tools. So little encouragement there, and if we can get on if you've got a bunch of clients and we can jump on another webinar or anything like that, we're only too happy to help and spread the word. But the best place to go is our website, gotaxi.co.nz. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, which is just LinkedIn, Nicola Raffles Taylor, and you can connect with Dan on LinkedIn. Yep. Where you can just find us on the website and email us. There's 1,000 ways to track us down. I'm sure you'll find one of them, and we'd be delighted.
And also to jump on that,
yes.
Is just to say, get the link to our socials and send it to your accountant. Have them watch this and see all the information is there. All the information is there, and they can two-time through it if we're talking too slowly. They don't have to sit through 45 minutes of a presentation or 25 minutes. It can be 10 minutes. So then they've got all the info.
Then they'll think I said personal tax, not provisional tax, because I'm going too quickly.
I'll put that in the description. Provisional tax.
Yeah. Thanks, Georgia.
And look, we're of course super happy to field more questions. So if anyone has something that they want to talk about in more detail, if they want a bit more of a run through of anything, anybody, you're welcome to reach out. And if you're a tax agent out there and you would like us to present on your behalf to clients of yours, we're really happy to run like a webinar for your clients, or we've actually got a bunch of information that we can pass through to you to pass on to them. So yeah, we want to make sure that the right information is in everyone's hands, and we'll go as far out of our way as we need to make sure that happens, because honestly, we just think this is too good not to shout about. So here we are shouting.
Same. That's why I wanted to get you on. Too good not to shout about. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your mahi with us. Thank you to everyone who showed up live. Those of you who are watching the replay, reach out to Nicola and Dan. Reach out to us at support@digitalboost.co.nz if you have any other questions, and we can field that for you and send you through the right channels. But this is, I can't. This has made my day. This has made my day.
Ours too, I think. Ours too.
Yeah, Thank you so wonderful. Much. Thank you so much for having us. Keep up the good work, everybody.
So great to see you guys. And I'll see the rest of you next week. All right. Matewa, everyone.
Yeah, ka kite anō. Thank you.